This episode is brought to you by Ursa Minor Outfitters. Folks, I'm absolutely in love with my loon mug. It's handmade, it's an absolute piece of art. Whether it's at the office or at the house, people keep asking to check it out. If you're not a loon fan, they also have other beautiful mugs for wildlife fans of moose, bears, and eagles. They specialize in products highlighting the outdoors and local pride through quality design by local artists. They've even started expanding into items beyond mugs, like apparel, dog accessories, and soon candles and more. They also try to partner and highlight other small businesses, and in some cases, forego profits in lieu of charitable giving to help their community, such as the dog rescue. So check them out, ursaminorouttfitters.com, and enter promo code HikesMikes10 at checkout to receive 10% off your order. And for our four-legged hiking partners, they also have a portable silicone dog bowl and also a sweet over-the-collar dog bandana. Go check them out, ursaminorouttfitters.com, and don't forget to enter promo code HikesMikes10 at checkout to receive 10% off your order. Welcome, everyone, to the latest episode of the Hikes and Mikes podcast. I'm your host, Ivan, and I'm excited to share this new season of the podcast with you. With both fall and winter arriving in the Pacific Northwest, it's time to store the mobile recording studio. This season, we'll be switching things up and interviewing some of my favorite hikers that I follow on Instagram virtually. We're following a similar format to season 1, where the first part of the episode focuses on the guest and their hiking adventures, and we're still going to end each episode with a speed round of this or that questions, all related to hiking. Today's episode features our first nomad hiker. We visit with Allie. You can follow her on Instagram at Allie Rambles, all one word. Allie's story is such an inspirational tale of resiliency and adventure that we made it into a special 2-part episode, with part 2 coming out next week. In this episode, we chat with Allie about how she got into hiking and the nomad lifestyle, and some of the amazing places she's visited while living on the road. Without further ado, let's jump into our episode with Allie. Welcome, everyone, to the latest episode of the Hikes and Mikes podcast. I'm here with Allie, speaking virtually with her as she explores the country in her mini Winnie. Thank you, Allie, for joining us today and sharing your experience. For first-time listeners, or just for listeners in general, can you share a little bit about yourself and how you kind of got started hiking?
The first time of hiking, well, I used to go when I was a kid, a little bit with mom, but that kind of went away as a teenager, and life got away from me. I stopped hiking after that. But around 2013 or so, I started running, and I was a runner for a couple of years. Then I got injured only while I was jogging. If I was walking, it didn't hurt. Like, I hurt my thigh. It didn't hurt when I was walking, but it hurt while I was running. And silly me didn't go to the doctor. I just started walking, and I'm not big on walking straights because I used to run, city streets in around my house, around my neighborhood, around the city. And I'm not really big on walking the same routes. So I don't know how I came across it. I think I went trail running with a group of girlfriends one day, and it was so foggy on the trail that we couldn't run because it was a women's running group. And it was so foggy, we couldn't run. Otherwise, we were going to run into cows. There were cows everywhere grazing. It was so thick. This was in the Bay Area. So you get really, really thick. I think it's called Thule fog. And it's like pea soup. So we're walking, and I figured out it. And then so I remember that incident. That was in August of 2014. I remember it. And we didn't expect the fog. So we're on a trail walking with our running clothes on. And then a few months later, I was doing a half marathon and got injured. So that's actually the backstory. I got injured and I had to walk the last 2 miles of my half marathon. I was really disappointed. Went back home after that and tried to stretch and all this stuff, and my thigh still hurt. So I thought, well, at least I can walk. It doesn't hurt when I walk, but this is boring. I don't want to walk in the streets. So I went out to that trail that I went with those ladies and had a ball. It wasn't foggy. There weren't as many cows. And it was just amazing. I was like, I really like this. And I just started hiking in my running clothes. And eventually actually still hike in that same shirt. I love it so much. And that was 2014. So I've had the shirt for 7 years, whatever it is. Yeah. So yeah, and then I just got the hiking bug. I took my dog out and we did, if you've ever been to the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area, there's just a ton of hiking. You could hike there your whole life. There's just so much. So ocean, desert, mountains. That's how I got the bug. And then I gave up running. I said, oh, forget that. I want to be out here in nature. That's when I started buying the backpack and the shoes and everything. So that long story short.
Nice. Interesting how you're able to turn that experience into something positive, from being injured to finding a new love for hiking.
I know, right? I got very, very lucky because I did love running. I was giving myself goals. I didn't want to do a marathon, but I did a half marathon. But yeah, I'm very lucky that hiking exists because I don't know if I would have been able to continue running with it starts to hurt your knees and your feet, but very lucky. And to be in the right place at the right time too. That the Bay Area hiking is amazing.
Interesting. I would have never thought to worry about coming across cows in the Bay Area, but to come across them.
Bunch of county parks out there where they allow the free range grazing, and it's in the wintertime it's so plush green, so they're just all over the place out there, but it's not fun in the fog because you can't see them.
Yeah. Now, Allie, you have a very unique home base for your adventures, where it's not necessarily a city, state, or region, but it's wherever you kind of decide to drive and set up. For our listeners who don't know, can you share about how you got involved in being a full-time RVer?
Oh gosh. Okay, so are you settled in for somewhat of a little bit of a long story? So I was married for almost 20 years and that ended in divorce. And I think a lot of women do this after, I was in my mid 40s. So you start thinking, what can I do now? Some people do enjoy going ahead and finding another partner, and that's fine. And I thought maybe that was going to be my route, but I ended up not doing that. I just ended up just following my own route. And I think that's about the time that van life was starting to get popular, around 2015, 16. And so I'm just binging on YouTube videos of RVers, full-time RVers, van lifers, everything like that. For a good 2 years, I just binged on it and learned as much as I could. And in the meantime, I thought either I'm going to be living in an RV or a van, or I'm going to travel the world, because I was setting myself up to work remote as well. I had a remote job at the time. So I could work anywhere. So I was like, I could work in Madrid. I don't care, as long as I work the hours in Pacific Standard Time. And sold my house in the Bay Area. And I also have 2 kids. So I was kind of waiting for them to finish high school and get on their own in their early 20s. So I was kind of waiting for that as well. But it all kind of wrapped up in 2019. I had sold my house before, and then I was decided to move to Arizona. I thought, okay, I'll just move to Arizona. I'll buy a house here. And I was staying with my mom. She said, you could stay with me for a couple of months or however long it takes you to find an apartment or house. Okay. This is fall of 2019. So November 2019, I get laid off. I said, oh, great. Now I don't have an income, and I was working remote. So then I decided, okay, it's almost Christmas time, because it was almost Christmas, and they did give me unemployment. So I was like, okay, I'm going to wait until after Christmas. I'm going to be looking, but I'm not going to really seriously look until after Christmas. Who's going to hire during Christmas anyway? And she lives in a small town, so I couldn't get any seasonal work or anything like that. So in the meantime, I don't know how many people have dogs, but I had a dog at the time, and she contracted cancer. And so for a couple of weeks, I was taking care of her. I was driving to Las Vegas to take care of her. She ended up passing. She was going to be part of my journey. So now everything's just starting to fall apart. So, oh my gosh, I don't have my remote job. I don't have my dog buddy to go with me. She went on every hike with me. Now we're talking January, February of 2020. And the day after I lost my dog was the day I decided to do the Arizona Trail. That's a different story, but it started to lead to me going, I don't want to buy a house. I don't want to buy an apartment. I want to go explore. I had a chunk of money from the sale of my home to go explore the nation. And since it was starting to become COVID, pandemic was occurring at that time, I couldn't go overseas. Couldn't even go into Canada or anything like that. So I decided to buy the RV at that time. Very, very strange to purchase something like that during a pandemic. But that's when I started too. It just circumstances, right or wrong place at the right or wrong time, but it just happened that way. July 2020, that's how I've been out here.
Wow. That's a beautiful story of resiliency, Allie. Like the things you had to navigate through to kind of find this opportunity where you're now traveling the country full time, seeing beautiful places across the nation.
Oh my gosh. I have seen some beautiful places. I do have to give credit to, mom and my kids have always stood by me. They've never discouraged me. They've always encouraged me to do what I do. And they like to hear my stories sometimes because I have a lot. But I do have to give them a little bit of credit for helping me out, along the way. If it wasn't for mom, I don't know where I would have gone. So I'll have her listen to this podcast. Thanks, mom.
Yeah, thanks, Mom, for helping Allie out.
Thanks, mom.
And you kind of mentioned it, Allie, that over the last 5, 7 years, the van lifestyle has really exploded in popularity. Now, for those that are interested, like myself, to either dabble in it or kind of explore the possibility of getting into that lifestyle, what's one thing that people should consider before really jumping into it? That someone like yourself who's gone through those growing pains with learning about van life and being a traveling nomad that you can share with listeners.
For me, the biggest thing, honestly, is to have a very reliable rig, to make sure that you do have a reliable rig. Well, it's running well. You've got good tires. You've got everything working under the hood. Whether you've done it yourself, whether you've built it out yourself, or just buy newer. For me, that was the big thing. I've been able to travel around for a couple of years with a reliable rig, and she's still working, by maintaining her as well. And that saves a lot of heartache from breaking down or having accidents because maybe something doesn't work in the rig, because there can be big accidents in these rigs, even vans and stuff like that. Yeah, I'm a little bit more practical. I'm not the fun loving, like, yeah, just have fun. No, I really do think that you should have a reliable rig and some money in savings just in case, a big accident happens. So you can, yeah, money in the bank. Very practical answers, I guess. That's what your accountant and your mom would tell you, right?
And I mean, not just even, RVs and vans, but just cars in general. Some of these service fees that you have to pay when it does break down, pretty astronomical. So, like you said, having a reliable rig is a big portion of it.
I think it is. But on a more practical side, like on a more lighthearted side, I guess, you have to like driving. You have to like driving. If you really do want to explore, you have to like driving, because there's times where you cannot find a place to stay for the night. If you live my lifestyle where you boondock and free camp for the most part, you have to really enjoy driving, because I've come across places I think I'm not going to stay here, and it's already 7 o'clock at night going, where the heck am I going to go now? I've stayed in motels. I'm like, well, I guess I'll stay in a motel. They go, you have an RV? I go, I don't want to drive anymore. So you have to enjoy driving too.
Good tip. Now, what would you say is your favorite part of the experience so far?
Even though I am an introvert, my favorite part is actually meeting all of the interesting people that I've met. And there haven't been that many, actually. There's a handful, but I just love hearing people's stories. I have a friend in Massachusetts. She's not a nomad. She's working to build her business, and she lives in Massachusetts. And she talks about the snow there, or the nomads that I meet. Yeah, I just love all the stories, all the people that I've met, whether they're nomads or not. Snowbirds, all of them.
Yeah, I think that's probably my biggest reason to continue doing this podcast, is just to hear everyone's stories. And you kind of get to experience it all over the country, wherever you set up. And especially if they're nomads yourself, kind of sharing, what do they call it? War stories of being on the road.
War stories. Oh, I've heard some bad ones. I actually had a friend whose RV caught on fire in Colorado, and I think she's had to total the RV. Either that or she's been working on it. I have to catch up with her. But some really bad stories. But I've met some really, really resilient people out here. When you said that I went through some stuff, no, I've met some very, very resilient men and women out here that, wow, I was like, I just think I couldn't do that. Nope. I'd probably end up with my tail between my legs and go back to mom. They're just like pushing through. I love it. Resilient
Oh,
people.
that's great, Allie. Now, you kind of touched base on this earlier in the episode, but when you first moved from California and you went to Arizona, you did an amazing 8-day through hike on the Arizona Trail. Could you share with the listeners a little bit about that experience and the route that you did complete?
Sure. I actually really like talking about my experience on the Arizona Trail just a little bit. As I touched upon before, I got laid off and then my dog got sick and I put her through like chemo and stuff like that. I had to drive up to Vegas to do that from Arizona. And she ended up passing. She was 14 years old, so it was too hard for her. But anyway, the day after she passed, I didn't want to do anything. I just sat on the internet. I didn't even want to flip through channels. I was sitting at mom's house and I'm sitting there flipping through channels on the cable TV, and I didn't want to do that. That was too much work. So I thought I'll just put on YouTube. I'll just get online and I'll look at some of these forums. I'll look at hiking stuff. I'm like, well, I don't know. Let me imagine myself hiking somewhere beautiful in Colorado or Washington or something. So I'm on a women's hiking forum and it's all just women. And there was a woman on there. She said, does anybody else want to hike the Arizona Trail? Or it said AZT. Does anybody want to hike the AZT with me? And I just looked at it and it's not like me to do this. I don't even know this woman and didn't know what the AZT was. I went, I will. And I just sent it. And then I went, wait, what is the AZT? I figured I'm in Arizona. It says AZT. And so I looked it up. It's an 800-mile trail from Mexico to Utah through Arizona. Okay, yeah. Oh, okay, that's a shorter through hike. I don't think I could do the PCT or the other big ones. And then I was like, wait, I don't even know this woman. I should contact her. We should talk. She ended up being a beautiful soul from Wyoming, my friend Jan. And she came down from Wyoming and we started down at the not New Mexico, Mexico border, and then hiked. We took about 5 days, 5 or 6 days, and we made it 76 miles. Now, this was early March of 2020. And at that time, people were still believing that the pandemic would only last a couple of weeks. It's just going to be a couple of weeks, maybe a month. And I started thinking, well, it'll be over by the time. I mean, I'm going to be out here for 8 to 10 weeks. So the pandemic will blow over. No big deal. I thought everybody's like, oh, it's just like the flu. You know how it was when in the beginning, everybody's kind of going, wait, we're not sure what to think about this. And I thought to myself, the safest place for me is in the middle of nowhere, right? Around no people, except for my two hiking buddies. So yeah, and a week after we started, because we stayed 2 days in a town called Patagonia. So it was a good week into our through hike. 76 miles in, we stopped at a camp. It was called Kentucky Camp. And there's a camp host there. And he's just telling us, no, you guys have to go home. This pandemic has gotten worse. They're going to start shutting down everything along the way. And our minds just start filling with, oh my gosh, I need to be home with my family. I don't want to spread, I don't want to spread anything. I'm walking from town to town, to city, who knows what this is going to be like. I want to be home with my kids. Grocery stores are going to be closed. Restaurants are going to be closed. Motels that through hikers normally stay in closed. So we decided to get off trail. And one of my hiking buddies was from Australia. And he's looking at us going, I don't want to get off trail. And it was me, Jan, and David. David's from Australia. Me and Jan just have to drive back home. No big deal. Kind of a pain in the butt, but we just drive back home. He had to fly back home and he didn't want to. He planned this out. And I felt bad, but it was at this stage now, it was a pandemic and we needed to just go home and sit for a few months like everybody else. So it was kind of heartbreaking, but it is what it is. It makes for a decent story.
Yeah. And I've actually been to Patagonia, just south of Tucson, and it's a beautiful little town. Is that where you kind of got off trail and headed back home?
We were there. We stopped. I think that was our fourth or fifth day. And then we decided to stay one night in the motel there. And then it started pouring rain. And we figured, well, let's go ahead and stay another night. What the heck? We've got almost 800 miles still ahead of us. So might as well rest. And why hike in the pouring? It was pouring rain. And also, you have to worry about the flash floods and everything like that when you're out in Arizona. So we were there for 2 days. And then we were going to continue hiking. We watched the news in Patagonia. It didn't seem like it was something so bad that we needed to get off trail yet. So we still continued to hike 2 days after that into Kentucky camp, which is kind of in the middle of nowhere. Yeah, none of us, all of us watched the news, and there were other thru hikers there. The motel was full of thru hikers, and all of us were like, no, it seems like we're okay to keep going. And then a few days later, nope. I'm still on a mission to finish the AZT. It's just going to be in sections or short day hikes or backpacking trips. We've got 200 miles down.
Oh, that's great, Allie. And you said it's a little over 800, the whole length of it?
I believe so. I don't know the exact number. I know it's 800 something.
Nice. And, from this conversation and also from your content, it seems like AZ holds a special place in your travels, and you've got a chance to visit, almost all four corners of that state. Is there a particular part of Arizona that tends to pull you a little bit more when you are traveling?
Oh, gosh. I used to think I was more of a mountain girl, but now I realize I am a desert person. It's kind of strange. When I'm in the forest, I long for the desert. When I'm in the desert, I long for the forest. And Arizona has both. So I was up in Flagstaff going, this is beautiful, but I long for the desert of Lake Havasu. There's a lot of great hiking trails there. You don't think of Lake Havasu as a hiking destination, but they have really good hiking trails there. I look forward to them. And I'm very familiar with that area now. So yes, I am drawn to the Lake Havasu area for different reasons than most people, because it's a snowbird town. It's also a party town. I think a lot of people know that. Well, I'm neither of those, but I'm more of the hiker section of it. But yeah, Lake Havasu draws me in. And now I'm starting to fall in love with Flagstaff as well. So the dichotomy, that's why I love Arizona. I have both, best of both worlds.
And being a full-time nomad, you get to experience that whenever you kind of feel like doing the drive, right? You can be in the desert in the morning and then be up in the mountains by midday afternoon.
You totally can. I think it's about maybe 4 hours away. Like I think it was, my son lives in Lake Havasu, and I was trying to convince him to drive to the Grand Canyon to meet me. He says, Mom, I'm working. And I was like, it's only 4 hours. Come on, you can do it. I think it's about 4 hours or so to the Grand Canyon. So probably about the same to Flagstaff.
And Arizona, for folks that don't really visit there or haven't visited there, they think of the desert. But, Flagstaff is a full mountain town. Like the elevation there was something that surprised me when I lived in Arizona is, here in Washington, we have mountain passes that are only 4,500 feet in elevation gain. But when you get to Flagstaff, you see that sign that you're over 7,000 feet in elevation. It's like, oh yeah, this is a mountain town. This isn't the desert anymore.
Yeah, I can't remember how high what did they call the San Francisco peaks, I believe it is. You might have to correct me on that one. I believe it is. And they're pretty high. It's one of my goals to get up there, but they kind of rival the Colorado mountains, the big, tall, the Rockies at times. Not 14,000 feet, but 10 maybe?
Yeah, they're pretty close. I want to say Humphreys Peak is over 13, maybe?
Is it really?
I think. Well, we'll have to double check that, but I think Humphreys is up there. And what's strange is they kind of come out of nowhere, because if you go east or west, it's kind of flat.
Yeah, I do believe they call the mountains in Arizona Sky Islands. They just come out of nowhere, and they're just beautiful. I mean, I was thinking about this the other day, I'm from California originally. So when you're in California, you see the Sierra Nevadas, and they just kind of gradually grow up, except for on the east side, I guess they kind of pop out of, but a lot of mountains, they just kind of gradually grow from the ground, from the bottom, from sea level. But in Arizona, they just pop out of nowhere. I think a lot of them are volcanic originally, so they just popped out of nowhere.
Yeah, I think you're right, because I forgot what it's called. I think it's called Sunset Crater National Monument, just out of Flagstaff, where you can see some old school lava fields from way back when.
I have yet to be there, because I think the one time I tried to go was during the pandemic, so it was closed. They do have a lava cave in Flagstaff that I visited this last, I think, September. It was really fun.
That's what I hear. I've never got to experience it, but that there's like old lava tubes and caves.
Yeah, It's really cool. You wouldn't think they
And
exist.
cold, right?
It is cold down there. It's like 50 or 45 degrees, whatever the constant temperature is. And it's pitch black and there's no sound. It's meditative. It's very meditative. I highly
I'll
suggest.
have to add that to the list next time I'm in Flagstaff. Now, kind of going back to your travels, Allie, one thing that I noticed that in the summer of 2021, you embarked on an amazing trip from Arizona to Utah to Colorado, and you hit up some really gorgeous places along the way. To name a few, Bryce Canyon, Black Canyon, Arches, and Mesa Verde were a few of the national parks that you hit up. But you also saw some wonderful state parks and national monuments. How did that trip kind of come about? Because I did read that you originally had maybe just planned to drive through Utah to reach Colorado, but the first couple stops you kind of fell in love with Utah.
Oh gosh, I think I fell in love with Utah when I think it was 12 or 13. We went on a road trip from Southern California to Utah to Zion and Bryce, Arches. Oh, any hiker could tell you it's one of their favorite places to hike is Southern Utah. It's just gorgeous. But to tell you the truth, I was on my way. I must not have put this as my storyline on Instagram. But I was on my way to do the through hike for the Colorado Trail, and that's how I didn't have to be there. Oh gosh, I can't remember the months. I don't think I had to be at my friend's house and near Denver until early June. I want to say I could have the months wrong. And we were going to hike southbound to Durango on the Colorado Trail. And so I still had some time and I was kind of meandering around Utah and parts of Colorado, just making sure I hiked a lot and in high elevation because the Colorado Trail is, I believe it averages over 10,000 feet. And you do hike above 12,000 quite often every day. So that's how I actually went to Colorado that year, was because I was on a mission to do the Colorado Trail, which that one ended with me giving up. I think I was just shy of 130 miles or so, 9 sections. And I looked at my hiking buddy, Steph. I go, does the whole trail look like this? Because it was mountain and then you climb another. It's absolutely beautiful. Don't get me wrong. It's a beautiful trail. But after, I think it was, I don't know, 9 days or something, I'm just looked at it. I go, does the whole trail look like this? Is it just summits? And then we go down, we go up, we go down, we go up, we go down. We get above we get above the tree level. Okay, now we have an alpine lake. This is great. And it's all just absolutely beautiful. Lupines everywhere. Just, it's beautiful. You can picture Colorado if you haven't been there. But after over 100 miles of that, I went, I can't do this anymore. It was a mental thing. And I quit. I kicked myself for that because I could have done it, but it was just mental. That's what they say, that the long hikes they're mental. You have to play the mental game. So that's what got me to Colorado. Since I was only on the trail for just less than what I expected, I figured, what the heck, I'm in Colorado. I'm going to go ahead and explore it. And you just start traveling the weather and finding boondocking places and hiking everywhere in Colorado. You can hike at rest stops in Colorado. There is hiking everywhere in Colorado.
And it's so diverse. You just drive 1 or 2 hours and it's a change of scenery there in Colorado. From plains to mountains to...
Exactly. It is diverse for sure.
I went to, I'm blanking on the name. It's west of Colorado Springs in August. Cute little mountain town.
Durango is, but
It might have been.
I'm trying to remember the cities I've been in. Durango's pretty far. It's west, but it's not near Colorado Springs.
Yeah, from the campground that we stayed at, you could see, forgot what they called them, but it's all the mountain peaks that have university names like Princeton, Harvard.
Oh, the collegiates.
Yes, the collegiates.
Yeah.
So we were on the east side of the collegiates.
Oh, the name is on the tip of my tongue. Is it Pagosa Springs?
Oh, yep.
That's a cute little town. I always just drive through. I haven't stopped yet. It's a cute little town. I want a river raft there.
Yeah, that's right, because the Arkansas is on there, I believe.
Yeah, I think that is the name.
Yeah, that place was just gorgeous, and I definitely want to go back and explore more Colorado.
Highly recommend any hiker to do that.
And, one thing that I was curious because you hit up so many great national parks, state parks, and national monuments on that trip. Is there one that surprised you the most? Not necessarily like which one you liked the most, but the one that kind of surprised you when you visited.
The one that actually surprised me the most was Mesa Verde. It had a really good mix of good hiking and amazing Native American history because it's down there by the Four Corners, so I just can't explain it. The hiking was really cool. There were petroglyphs along the hike, and then you can go in with a tour, of course, and see the ruins from the peoples that lived there. Ooh, was it 700 years ago or so? The Puebloan people is what they referred to them now. But it just opened up this Pandora's box for me and wanting to learn more about the peoples that lived in, New Mexico, Arizona, Colorado, and Arizona and that region before, Europeans were here. And it really opened up this Pandora's box for me, and I wanted to start studying it a little bit more and giving it. You go to the parks, and I was just so thankful that we did set this land aside because so much of our history has been lost. So it's at least we have that little bit, and I do see more of a movement to keep it alive, even though it's not technically my history, but it is this land's history, and I love that. And then the hiking on top of that, and the beauty, So it opened my eyes definitely to feeling closer to the Southwest in terms of feeling like I had roots in a way. I don't know, a little bit spiritual, but Mesa Verde, yes.
So, Mesa Verde's been on my list to check out when I'm in that region. So, with a tour, you're able to go into some of the structures and ruins that are still there?
You are. It's
Wow, okay.
ranger guided. I've gone twice. Actually, I've gone 3 times since I've been in our nomad. The first time they just had it closed. I think it was during COVID, and they didn't have anything open. I just went for a hike. The second 2 times that I went, I just didn't make a reservation to go. I had already hiked a bunch, and I was like, I don't feel like hiking anymore. I'll come back. I know I'll come back. So yeah, you can just take a tour. I can't remember. Yeah, it's a ranger tour. You climb all the ladders and everything. It is cool. Highly suggested. I did it as a kid, but I don't remember it. Just remember I had fun.
Have you done the ruins that are just east of Phoenix? I'm blanking on the name. I think it's either a national monument or a state park.
I think I know which ones you're referring to. I have yet to explore a lot of the Phoenix area, mostly because it's no fun navigating an RV through a lot of people, the cars and everything. So I tend to avoid major cities, and Phoenix is a major city. But I know that there's just amazing hiking as well as history that surrounds the area, especially east, I believe, of Phoenix, east and south. And I think what keeps me from doing it too is there's not a lot of public lands to stay on in that area. So it'd be more of a trip that I have to plan out and like make reservations at a state park or stuff like that. But yeah, I've heard of the ruins in the area. There's a lot of ruins in Colorado and Arizona, and as well as Utah as well, more than what we know.
Mesa Verde, definitely is the big one because it's a national park and that one east of Phoenix. But there's a YouTuber that's based out of Phoenix called Jerry Arizona, and he was going to a lot of the ruins that weren't really maintained. They were just up in the mountains that people could come across there in Arizona, and I was surprised how many there were.
You'd be very, very surprised. There's actually, they're not ruins, but there's a lot of petroglyphs outside of Laughlin, Nevada as well. There's just, you almost have to like know the local history or know somebody that locally that likes to explore. And they go, oh yeah, go see the petroglyphs outside of Laughlin. You go, what? There's petroglyphs outside of Laughlin? Yeah, it's just a half an hour away. You go, what? And there's just hundreds of them, and there's no chain or anything. And they just ask you don't touch them or climb on them. So it's fascinating, and it's so fun to discover stuff like that. Like you said, I actually wrote down the name of the person that you mentioned for you too, so I can watch.
Oh yeah, he's great. He definitely helped me kind of learn about some of the hikes and history there in Arizona, and made me realize that Arizona wasn't just desert, that you could visit great places like Flagstaff. Payson was another great place.
You can't tell anybody, though. Everybody thinks that Arizona is just this massive desert and it's always 110.
Yeah.
So don't tell anybody.
Thank you, Allie, for joining us on the latest episode of the Hikes and Mikes podcast. Part 2 of Allie's episode will be released next week. In the meantime, make sure to follow her on Instagram at Allie Rambles to check out some of her recent adventures, as well as on YouTube at I Am Allie Rambles to see the sections that she's been able to cross off on the Arizona Trail. Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the Hikes and Mikes podcast. We'll be putting out new episodes every week through the fall and winter. Be sure to like and subscribe to not miss out on those. Also, be sure to follow us on Instagram at Hikes and Mikes. Catch you on the next one. This episode's music was created by Ketsa. Follow him on Instagram at Ketsa Music. This episode is brought to you by Flip Socks. Whether you're on the trail, on the job, or in the yard, Flip Socks will keep Mother Nature out of your boots with their innovative nylon sleeve. You no longer need to worry about any annoying debris getting trapped in your boots during your hikes. Simply flip down the nylon sleeve over any boot to prevent Mother Nature from finding its way inside, keeping your feet comfortable all day long. To get your first pair, visit flipsockswithaz.com and enter promo code HikesMikes10 at checkout to receive 10% off your order. And for listeners who use the promo code at checkout, I'll be donating 100% of the Season 2 promo code proceeds to Big City Mountaineers, who provide transformative experiences through connections to nature that strengthen life skills and build community for youth and disinvested communities across the nation. So if you're tired of bits and pieces of the trail finding its way into your hiking boots, pick up a pair of Flip Socks today with the promo code HikesMikes10 to get 10% off. For website and promo code, see the episode description.